Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Mind the Stigma with me, Tom Perry.
Yeah, and me, Alex Emery. Our guest today is Vicky McLennan, fellow veteran and member of the RBLI Village. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. I'm good.
Good.
Thanks, Tom.
I just wanted to get you on, really. Vicky is an amazing person with an amazing story. And yeah, just start us off naturally from the beginning around sort of childhood. Start there, and then I'm sure there's loads we can sort of build in from there, mate. So, where were you born? How did it start?
Going back to 1980, Kowloon, Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong. I was part of a military family. My dad served in the REMC for 22 years. I was born out there and then moved around with my dad while he served for most of my childhood till I was about 16.
Where moving around wise, whereabouts?
So I think I went to my first sort of school in Woolwich, and then Aldershot. We spent a lot of time. Went to Germany, back and forth to Hong Kong, I think twice, that sort of thing.
As a child, though, that must have been quite exciting. But was there also like an element of like apprehension, nervousness about going to new places, or was that something that you grew out of quite quickly?
Yeah, I got that. I think that I take that as a positive from my childhood, getting to meet people, comfortable meeting new people. It's a positive moving around. But then when I got older and you start forming relationships, friendships, and it gets a lot harder to leave.
Something that a lot of vets say about the constant moving around. Then when you find yourself static in one place, it's quite hard to nail that down and be sort of consistent with your lifestyle. And I think it can actually be quite disruptive to then stay in one place again because you're used to that 2-year cycle of bouncing around. And I think it can be a really hard sort of transition. But yeah, so once you kind of got through that then, so you got to the point where you're 16, you said. What happened at that point?
About 16, 17, my dad got out. He left as Corps RSM, as REMC, and we went up to Scotland because my dad's Scottish. I went up to live in Scotland, so I went to school up there, finished off my education. One thing I want to say about education is it could have been disrupted moving around lots of schools, but I was okay. I did all right. I got my GCSEs and my A levels.
Why was that, do you think? Why did you do so well? Because I know that's hard, when you move mountain schools anyway, let alone like different locations as well, not just the same areas, different schools. We're talking about across continents.
I think I went to some schools in Germany which were good. I know I learned different cultures. I learned about different people from a young age. So I think I just fell into that. I didn't let it disrupt me. I just got on with it.
Finished school. What was your plans in your head mentally? Where were you at? Because obviously you bounced around. You've seen your dad obviously clearly pass his way through a long career, one that's illustrious, that's done quite well. Yeah, was that something that you strive to achieve as well? Or
yeah, I think so. I knew from a younger age that being around the military, I enjoyed the element of being a family, moving with the army. It was my sisters would never join, and they were never interested. But I was always the one, the sort of tomboy out there on the bike, and just Dad taking me to work, going, "Dad, why does everyone stand up when you walk in the room?" Like, thinking, "Wow, this is
Yeah, my dad's like it's weird.
Yes,
like, guy, yeah, sweet. A bit odd.
No, yeah, and it just was something that was there. I was either going to join or not join, and I thought the lifestyle, it had a lot. It appealed to me quite a lot, and it had a lot going for it.
So, age you joined? When did you join?
When I was 19.
Yeah.
So I left school and I thought, what do I do now? Oh, I'll join university because that's what everyone else does.
Yeah.
So I went to uni for about 6 months, and then
you said this recently. I was not to say I was recently surprised because oh my god, she's stupid. No, it was more because I was sitting there and it was a part of your life that, and this came back to what I was speaking about with Steve the other day and yourself was the army seen as like the best time of your life or the best thing that's ever going to happen to you. But that's a massive achievement. So what happened with uni? What did you study?
oh well, it's probably because I chose to do politics, geography, and history. So there you go. Yeah.
So
I was more interested in being in the uni bar at the time when I was young.
So did you finish uni? You completed?
No, I did about 6 months. So had a good time though.
Yeah, you're back. You've gone up in my world
Dundee
again.
University. Yeah, it's a good uni to get into. Yeah, apparently.
No, yeah, it is supposed to be. But I mean, so What made you then completely come away from that? Was it just something that you'd figured out that's not for you? And
Yeah, it wasn't for me at that time. I just thought, what am I going to do when I finish this university? What am I going to do? I didn't really know. Didn't know at the time what I wanted. So I just went with the norm. Oh, you go to school, you go to uni, you get a job. And then I was like, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can join the army. So I did.
I love it. Love it how that's not seen as a job. Yeah, I'll just do that. Like, yeah, boot camp. No, I get that. I get that.
I took my dad out for lunch actually, and I said, I want to join the army. He said, you know what you're letting yourself in for, Vicky? I went, yeah, totally. Yeah, let's do it.
You joined the army. Did it meet your expectations, or was it totally different to what you seen in your head? What you kind of made up in your mind, or what it would have been like?
What, sergeant screaming in your face,
Yeah,
spitting in your face? Yeah, yeah. I was used to my dad, being a regimental sergeant major, living with, they were nothing really. Them sergeants shouting at me, it just went over my head.
It makes for quite an easy, not an easy time, because I think you're actually then tested or measured against your dad's performance performance in the military, his time in the military, which actually can be even harder. But it does set you up in a good way. A lot of individuals that I serve with that had parents that had gone through, and even myself, is you kind of get a bit of an insight because of their behaviours, even if they're. I mean, at the time, my parents weren't in the army when I was born; they'd already left, but my dad's behaviour and my mum's was really rigid. The way they wanted to live, the type of lifestyle they lived, the way the house even looked. I could tell. So when I joined, it wasn't really too much of a kick in the teeth. You know what I mean? Like having to live pristine. I kind of already, although I was an absolute grot bag, I was disgusted. Like, you know what I mean? Well, I mean, to be fair, even now, as boxers, it inside out, like it's standard behaviour. You don't mess about with a washing machine. Everything's expensive these days. But yeah, I mean, I kind of built up that tolerance, and I can see it with yourself. And when I met your mum and dad recently, I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see, but they've got this that personality. It's that military mentality, personality, the family ethos that you get within that military sort of bond within the villages that you have there. I could see it in the way they talk, in the way they interacted with some of the other veterans we had there as well. So yeah. So moving past that part, then, so you got in.
Just only
Go on.
just.
Oh
I went
my
to.
God, go on.
There's another story there. I went to the careers office to do the test. So bearing in mind, I'd just come from uni, Dundee Uni, to in the high street in Dundee to the careers office with my student card. Yeah, I have that back. I won't wait to see if I get in the army. I'll just give you that back. Went to the careers office and done the test, and I was like, yeah, Bob is smaller than Tim, who's larger. Like that one, like doing this test, and I failed it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, this simple test to get in.
You know what? It's really funny, isn't it? That says a lot. It does say a lot.
And I was like, he didn't tell me it was timed. So I was taking my time making sure I got the right answer. And then he did let me back and have another go, which he shouldn't have done apparently. So
But the barb test is a really strange thing. It's like if someone goes, "Oh, I've heard that's piss easy," and it is. It is. It really is. I mean, thinking back, I'm like, "Oh my God, I should have really smashed that." But I think I was just in mong state. I think I really was. And you send someone in there that's just like, "Oh, this looks easy," and which cog's moving quicker? Well, I'm looking at all the cogs, going, "Well, fucking moving the same to me." So I went like that and just pick one, and then it was afterwards they went, "Oh, you're really not that intelligent. So we're gonna go. You've got infantry, basically anything infantry. Like if you want to, yeah, infantry. And then you could be a gunner. I was like, oh, what's a gunner? Oh, it's a big thing that goes back. Oh. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. But yeah, I have to admit, it does catch you out. But that's quite funny that you nearly didn't get in. Um, so when you did eventually get in, what was your choices? Why did you choose to go where you went? Because I know obviously with your dad being RMC, and it's something that was that something that you just wanted to do, or
yeah, I wanted to sort of, in a way, follow in his footsteps. I knew what it was about. I knew, what I was letting myself in for.
what pressure did you feel then do it? Because I can imagine that must have been quite big.
So yeah, I tipped up at Lichfield on day one, and I could see we're all standing there. We've all got off the train. We've all met the corporal. We've all gone back there. It's a big step, isn't it? Like, and you've left your family. You've been blubbing all the way down from Scotland on the train, and you're like, sort myself out. Come on, I'm joining the army here. And then I could see this sergeant looking around. We were all standing there with our little name badges on in our smart civvies and that. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Started already. He was looking for me. He was looking for my name. That was it.
What was the reception you got? Because I can imagine there would have been a mixture, depending on what your dad said to someone in the past. Which I don't. I met someone who'd known my dad, and I thought I'd never meet anyone that knew my dad because he'd left so long ago. But there was a corporal, and I remember he had made my life fucking hard. Like, and this was in phase two, and I remember he said your dad used to take me around the back of bicycles and smack me up for being shit.
I wonder what he was going to say then.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, hopefully he didn't do anything else, but to come. No, so yeah, basically, I then just received the shit end of that. So I can imagine it would have been quite hard for you. And what did that do? That because I remember that first night or the first couple of nights or first week, mentally, where was you at? Because you've gone from being a student, and obviously you've had that lifestyle with your parents, but what mentally, where was you at that point? Because that I think is quite a poignant thing. We'll probably have people on here that might watch that are going through training or like, how did that feel for you, knowing that you were going to try and follow in the footsteps of someone that's been so, has done really well within the career? Like,
Oh, there was a little bit of pressure there.
mm,
But I could have, with my qualifications, I could have went in as like they kept pulling me out, going, "Sure, you don't want to be a nurse? No, I want to be a medic. No, do you want to be a nurse? You can be a nurse if you want.
yeah,
No, I want to, and you could be an officer if you want." I said, "No, I want to go in at the bottom, and if I get that far, then I get that far. Then I just want to work for it." I've always been I think the work ethic's been there with my family growing up. That my dad being military, it's just always been there. I mean, I was in Germany and as a child, when my dad was based out there, and I remember lying in bed one day going, "What can I do to get me some money?" like just I'll do a paper round. So I've always had that
the
go out
drive, the work
there.
mentality.
Yeah, always had that. So, but yeah, at Lichfield, I was homesick. Yeah, I missed my family terribly.
Well, I was quite like, I felt like, I'd already gone through a period of staying away from home and living out. And I think it was actually knowing that if this all fails, that it's not just like failing at a GCSE or leaving uni early. This is quite a big thing because a lot of people know you've gone. For me, they did anyway. A lot of people knew that was where I wanted to go. And I thought, this is actually not as easy as I thought. I don't actually really want to be here that much, to be fair. I was like, I've got some fucking idiot next to me, keeps snoring. So I'm in a block with in a small little room with 14 people that I actually thought half of them were fucking knobs. But in the end, it turns out I loved them all. But at the beginning, I was like, this ain't for me. Where's my single room? Where's my single room? Where's my little nice home stuff? And I did get quite homesick, to be fair. I was like, oh, that first week, I was like, maybe my dad was right because he thought I couldn't do it. He's like, I'm not sure if you.
Gives you the drive then to say,
It
"Oh
does,
no,
yeah,
I
it
can do
does.
it." I don't think I ever had a fear of not passing basic training rate or joining. I didn't have any fear that I thought I'm here now and this is it. I'm doing it.
I think that's that drive though that just keeps you going. But so you get through basic training, you're in become a medic. Let's like fast forward then a little bit. So you get to your unit, your first unit. What's because you did quite a few deployments, right?
Yeah.
Anyone that's seen Vicky out parade or anything like that, and it's quite yeah, there's quite a few there.
One more than my dad, so
But yeah, one more than your dad.
I had to beat him, didn't I?
Do you have to do you mind him about that or?
Yeah, you know what? I did bring it up when I saw him quite a few weeks ago, and it was kind of like I'd kicked him in the nuts a little bit. So he did look at me a little bit, and then he told me that he'd done something one more than you. And honestly, I was like, I should do it.
Yeah. He's very proud of
But
me.
yeah, he is very
We
proud
all
of you.
are.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, he
right.
did speak highly about you. So, where was your first deployment then? What was
So
that?
Colchester, 16 Close Support Medical Regiment in Colchester. Um, and I was in the unit. I was living in a 10-man room with loads of girls, and it was a nightmare. And then they were like, "Oh, we've got this deployment to Kosovo." I was like, "Did you get your own room?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah. So off I went to Kosovo, like pretty much months after joining the unit. It was pre-deployment training, bit of leave, say bye-bye everyone, and I'm off. And that was it. Hit the ground running from there. Came went to Kosovo,
Yeah.
walked into the ops room where where all the sort of they're sitting there and there's like TVs and stuff. And I was like, "What DVD are you watching there then?" They were like, "No, it's not a DVD. It's 9/11. It's just happened. It's for real." I was like, "Oh." So it was like, "Oh, we'll be going somewhere else soon then."
What was your gut feeling then, like at that moment when you saw that? Because I know that that's quite a turning point for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was like we sort of knew that we were going away again was on the cards. Yeah, so we knew that when we got back, it'd be more pre-deployment training, which it was, bit of leave, training again to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first troops on the ground in Kabul.
What did that pre-deployment look like for you? Because like we spoke with Steve, his first lot of pre-deployment in relation to when he went out to Afghan. Obviously, it's a little bit later in the pre-deployment side of things in relation to Afghan. What did that look like for you? How did it feel? Did you feel prepared mentally, physically to get? Or when you got there, did you feel like what I've done is mentally prepared me for this or not?
I suppose it didn't. It didn't. I was quite young, and I wanted to go away because I'd been volunteered my first. I got that. I like being away. Like I prefer being away. I was one of them soldiers that preferred to be away than to be back in camp. Yeah, I was just. I was always on exercise. You know what 16-year-old adults like. You were busy. You've got to be prepared to go anywhere in the world at a drop of a hat. So
It's high readiness, isn't it? So yeah.
yeah, and you're on constant alert for all that time. So I spent my first 4 or 5 years in the military just there, pretty much going away, coming back, going away.
When you came back then, because obviously I think it's hard to mentally prepare yourself to go anywhere. But I think coming back, what did that look like? Like the decompression of it all. Like, was that something that's
They're amazed by everything when you come back 'cause you've not had it. You've had nothing. I mean, I think for 2 weeks in Afghan, we didn't even have like any bread or an apple. I remember seeing an apple thinking, "Oh, that looks juicy."
love? Yeah.
And the Afghan bread, which we got told, "Oh, you're not allowed to eat that." When the environmental health came out, I was like, "Oh, it's too late. I've already had 2 weeks of eating it."
Yeah, I'm rattling the fucking bog at the minute. Two hands on it, like that. Love it. But yes, it's hard, isn't it? Because I think like with what we was talking about in the last podcast is I don't think there's any way to prepare yourself for what potentially the fallout might look like when you do come back from a tour, no matter how kinetic it is, because you've gone to a place that's got a different culture, thoughts and feelings when you first land there. And you're in a new country. You're in a country in which was well, it was known for obviously its terrorist activities. Being a hub and a hive for terrorist activities. What was your thoughts and feelings first minute you land on the ground? Obviously, other than the heat that hits you.
Well, it was at night actually, so I just wanted to get my head down and get some sleep.
Okay.
I just remember walking into this building, no windows. It was all like, and it was freezing cold. And I remember my friend Karen, she was there before me, and I thought, "Oh, brilliant! Let's huddle up. Let's get some body heat here." So we just got our toss bags out and got on the floor, literally in this room. This is your room, girls. And then like we kept trickling. Like a few girls would come in later on, a few hours, and then we all huddled together to keep warm. And then a few more people would come in, and we were all in this room in like a big long. Everyone together with their DOS bags,
Little
like
sausage party of
yeah,
women.
like
Lovely. Yeah, I've got
so, yeah.
great thoughts right now. Yeah, this is really not
But it was
doing.
just so cold. I remember it being freezing cold when we got there. And then in the day, it was really hot when you're in the sun. It was really nice, but it took a while to warm up.
It's two extremes, isn't it? Yeah, I had heard a lot about that because being as that I'm obviously clearly not that intelligent. I was like, "What are you talking about?" Someone goes, "Yeah, it was freezing, mate. I had like 2 or 3 coats on at one point, and I was just like standing there like, yeah, and I was like,
Yeah, no, it
it's a
was.
desert,
Yeah,
it's
no,
boiling."
yeah. Through the day it was hot, and at night it was really dropped, and you felt it. Even having a wash in the morning around the bowl, there was icicles around the bowl.
Yeah. So you get there, you're stuck in a room full of other women that obviously been deployed from different units, I'm
I
guessing,
think we were all from the
potentially.
same unit there.
Okay,
16,
all
yeah,
same unit.
medical. So it was the medics. So
All
basically,
medics.
we when we first went there, we set up a like clinic for the locals. They can't just go to the shop and buy paracetamol. So we set up these little clinics where they would come to us. But boy, did when they found out we were there, they all come in there. Yeah.
And what was the response you got from them? Because obviously, I think the mixed. I don't know at what point that changed, but yeah, there's a mixed feeling, wasn't there, about you guys being there?
Well,
So
it was quite. They were quite happy for us at the start. I mean, we were providing blue light matrix to Kabul, so used to go out in like 2, 3 in the morning, get a call. I thought, oh, it's another lady. She's pregnant. She's having a baby. Get in the ambulance. Off we go. We go through these checkpoints. These Afghan army would be pointing their AK-47s in our ambulance. Like we're going to pick someone up. We're okay. Let us through. Like, it's quite scary at first. I was only young, in the back of the ambulance, thinking, just don't shoot.
so what was so how old were you then when you first got deployed? How old were you?
So I was about in my early 20s.
Early 20s.
So I went to Kosovo when I was 21, I think.
Okay.
21, and then 22. I was in Afghan when I was about 22.
Do you think then, like, because obviously, I don't know whether it's a good thing or not, because when the younger you are, I feel like almost the less fear you have, because I don't feel you've actually had too much life experience yet to actually build up fear. Like,
Everything was fun. Everything was,
yeah, like
I'm
just
glad I'm there,
exciting.
exciting, yeah.
And then so when did that really change for you then on that particular tour? When did things really become quite real or
I
not?
wouldn't say, well, on that tour, it was when we got an ambulance call, and it was people, was it a different Danish? I can't remember now. It was that long ago, but yeah, people have been like blown up by landmines that were there. Like not a terrorist attack, not anything like that. It was just
IEDs,
uh,
wasn't it?
there was a lot of legacy mines from when the Russians were there before, wasn't there? I used to drive around and they'd all be on the side of the roads, and you could just see them all piled up.
Was that when you came back from that first tour, you land back, you're in Collie again.
Hit the high street running,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you did the
Nights out,
proper
yeah,
squaddy
yeah,
debrief,
yeah,
which involved a lot of drinking.
yeah.
Um, when do you feel then, like obviously then subsequently you've gone on other tours since then, and I don't wish to make you relive every single tour that we talk and we're going to talk about. I don't think that's really the point. I
No,
think because with you, Vicky, I think my real thoughts and feelings around you is that you've done so much. You've done so much within your regiment. You've done so much within your service. I want to know more about the fallout of what that's done to
yeah,
you. Really, I mean, I think it's given you a massive platform to push off from. But I think it looks like to me, and maybe it felt like to you that your platform fell from underneath you.
yeah.
And when did that start to show its ugly face? Then, like all this sort of PTSD stuff. But when did that sort of show its ugly face?
After my last Afghan tour, which was frontline,
Yeah.
out on the frontline medic, 2011-12.
Okay.
So
And
it was
then,
after that, when I got back after that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then
self-destruct, pretty
in
much.
what way? Talk
So
me through that. What that looked like.
so that wasn't pretty at all. That was pushing everyone away, not talking to my family. Them, I think they knew they sort of had an inkling what was going on,
Yeah.
but I wasn't with them. I was an older shot at the time. I'd been in Germany
Mm.
to deploy to Afghan, and I came, pretty much did that tour, came back to Germany and had to move back to the UK. So I was with total separate people that I'd been away with,
Yeah.
new faces, people that didn't know me, and I was struggling. And they were because I'd just fresh come back from Afghan, they were like, Vicky's current, she's up to date, she knows
They
this,
wanted to ask you
and
something about
they wanted so much from me. They wanted me to train others. I was
Yeah.
going to Thetford Forest, and the engineers were setting off bangs, and I was on the floor in bits, like, and I was just like this. I didn't really know at the time
what that was.
what it was. I didn't know why I was reacting like that. I
Yeah.
didn't, and then I was hit it like I'd hit it hard going on nights out, because the alcohol then numbs all the feelings. You
Mhm.
don't, numbs it out, doesn't it? And then for that short
Yeah,
time,
for
and
that
then you've
short
got to
period.
try and go to work. So you're trying to carry on with work, and I just was not functioning well at all. And it was someone pulled. I remember someone pulling me in, who I worked with, another sergeant, because I was a sergeant then. and I felt a lot of pressure being a senior NCO. It felt like I wasn't allowed to show my emotion because I had troops under me that I was looking after, and teaching them how to go to war. So I couldn't show them that I was suffering from being away, and trying to hold that all in and hold it together was just not easy at all.
I think that's the hardest bit about it, isn't it? Especially the military ethos, the way it runs, what it runs on. I think if you are, like I said to Steve, and we discussed it, me and Tom have discussed it before, and it doesn't have space for that. I don't think that, and it sounds awful because you can really lose some good people over it, whether that be lose them to them leaving or lose them because they take their life. Yeah, and yeah, that, I mean, I can see how the self-destruct sort of starts. So, people did recognize that in you, but what was the response you got from other people then when you started to, push back to say, no, I'm not doing that, or I can't do that, or not feeling that today, or whatever it might, because the army doesn't, there's no such thing as really a no, is there? There's not you don't really say no. You can kind of argue the toss, but you're going to be doing it anyway. So
Yeah.
When obviously you're suffering PTSD at that point, whether or not it's been diagnosed, you're suffering real big time. How did you handle that? Being that you were still in work, like you said.
Very badly, yeah. So someone I worked with got me into the office and said, "Vicky, your troops, they don't like you." And I was like, "What? Well, I've always been well respected,
Yeah.
like did well in my career and always did the best I could for the people under me.
Yeah.
That's what it was about for me, making sure they were okay, teamwork and everything. Just how it was ingrained in me, really. And for that, them words from that
Discretion.
it was like, wow. And then that made me go to the med centre and get help, but I obviously didn't get the right help at the time. I just got you're just depressed and you'll get. Oh, actually, I went to a doctor who didn't understand mental health. I was in a room with someone saying, get yourself back together. You're a sergeant, get back to work. What do you want time off for? Yeah, this was the attitude, and it was 2012, and
So in 2012.
I actually had to stop the doctor and say, "Hold on a minute, doc. You're not helping me right now." And it was Lieutenant Colonel. I will always never forget. And I had to walk out because I thought, he's not helping. He's making me feel worse here.
Sad.
He's making me feel like it's all my fault.
2012, and someone hasn't got the ability that's in that. It's hard to describe to anyone that hasn't been sitting in front of a doctor that's also wearing a rank, because it's an odd concept, because it's like going to your doctor, but knowing, like, I don't know. It's like opening up to someone you fully well know that if you open up to, you're judged not only medically, but in a military fashion. It's really hard to explain. So mentally, that must have been. I mean, it's crushing to hear that supposedly your troops felt that way about you, supposedly. And I think, you know what, in the military, I think things get said to you to try and drive you into a better place, to push yourself. And they use negative language sometimes, so that, like they do in the workplace, a few people said you're slacking, so that you try harder. Yeah. But yeah,
that wasn't the right thing for me to hear at that time.
No.
I could have dealt with that. If I was well, I could have dealt with that fine and got on. But because I wasn't well, I couldn't deal with that. So it was hands, I was off work. I actually was off work for a while then. And I think people did find it hard to know what to say. I was in the mess. I was living there, and I didn't have another property or anything to go to. That was my home. So I was still on camp dealing with PTSD, like figuring it all out myself, trying to go and do what I knew would help me, like go for a run. And then if I went for a run, someone would say, "Oh, Vicky's all right. I saw her out running today." So
it's really hard.
It's the stigma, isn't it? It's
A lot of people can't
hidden.
see
Hidden.
what's going on. It is hidden. I mean, you saying about that doctor as well. I mean, doctors are known for it, and they still are known for it. They generally don't understand it. I mean, I've been to doctors before. I mean, obviously non-military and that, but where I've gone in and said that how I'm feeling, and they just look around and go, "Well, if you go for a walk, talk to someone, and I'm talking to you, like I'm thinking, I'm talking to you." And but a few doctors I've seen in the past have been terrible. Have been really terrible. And I just don't think enough doctors understand it. It's not something that they get. I don't think there's enough training doctors are having with it.
Sort of speciality, really, isn't it? Like,
It definitely is. You think about how wide the spectrum is of any mental health disorders or just generally people's mental health, and the age groups, the brackets it can hit. I mean, it is a minefield. It is a minefield. But you would expect, I mean, empathy is not hard to drill into someone, it takes a bit of time. But if you're in them kind of medical roles, like, empathy is like your first tool. And also it's that whole being able to be a good listener, and anyone that's worked in any medical profession or understands how to, triage someone, treat someone, it starts with communication. And if you can't even have that basic sense to not say something that's a
detrimental.
bit, proper detriment. I mean, in the nicest way possible, you could have gone back and done all sorts. If you weren't signed off and you're going to go down to the ranges the next day,
I wasn't in the right mindset to handle weapons because
Oh.
I remember I was always really fit. I mean, I'd done courses that I always pushed myself because probably going to the female thing in a male dominated environment. I always pushed myself to do better. Even though I was doing all right, I had to do better. I went on a course that was arduous so that I could come back and go, I've passed that arduous course. I've done it. And I did it.
In that male-dominated world that was in the army and that, was you looked at differently because you was a woman in the army?
Early days, I'd say, no fault of their own, it was just the way it was, if you like. That was the way, I remember being on parade in Colchester and the sergeant coming out, and I was really good friends with this guy in the end of my career anyway. But I remember there's a couple of corporals and they were like, right guys, P Company's coming up. Who wants to do P Company then? And I was like, I'll do it. So like, McLennan, get your hand down, you idiot, da da da, like getting screamed at because I was a female, put my hand up, they thought I was taking a mick. No, I wanted to do it. And then now when I read an article that a young 19-year-old female medic's past P Company, I'm like, get in. Brilliant. Well done.
it must make you.
But it is like, that could have been me a little,
It's hard,
like,
isn't it? It is hard. We spoke just before this, didn't we? And my time in the military, regardless of all the tour bits and all that, my experience of just being a soldier will be completely different to yours, just because of the fact that you're a female. And I think when I was in, I didn't, you're blasé to most things, but now I'm out, I see, and especially what you have achieved. It shows that the whole women being on the front line or being able to basically do exactly the same things a bloke can do. It should have happened donkeys ago. Should have. And it's so sad because it does make you think about the what ifs. Actually, I should have been able to have that opportunity to do that. And I think, and especially when you've, like, we'll come onto it, but when you've then left, these little things are the things that really hit you worse than anything else, because you're like, well, actually, if I would have had the opportunity to do that, maybe I wouldn't be in this position. Maybe I'd be a stronger person, or maybe, I would have moved in my career differently. Your mind goes off on a tangent, and it with any mental health. And Tom, you agree, hopefully, is that once you get an idea in your head about where you think you should be in life or whatever, you just go into a hole, and you're in a massive rabbit hole, and you don't know when you're coming out of that.
You get tunnel vision, I think, when you get into that state of mind, whatever one it is, if it is like suffering with depression, anxiety, you are in like a tunnel.
Oh yeah.
And you can only see that end, just the end of the tunnel coming.
It's really hard. It's hard to see anything else other than that. But so coming back onto you, Vicky, if you think about then you're suffering, you're on camp, how long was the period from that first initial doctor's meeting to you being medically discharged then?
God, that first was 2000, but so it must have been 2012, and then I struggled through, don't know how, man, and then I got posted from Aldershot to Chicksands, where I worked there as a practice manager for a while. So it was out of the norm for me. Being in a medical centre as a practice manager was total different kettle of fish, and I took it on and thought, right, I'm up for the challenge, but I wasn't up for that challenge at all, not mentally. Every step I took to work in the morning was with dread. Like, I was like, I didn't know how I was getting there. I was, like you said, tunnel. I was just
Yeah,
like
you feel that zombie effect,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. It was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but apparently I'm fine, so I'll crack on.
Was you medicated at that point?
No, I don't think so, no. And I was carrying on with that, and I had a few issues there, and then I wasn't really getting, my career wasn't getting any better. So I'd done so well, done all these tours, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Bosnia, and then another Iraq, and then another Afghan, then Chicksans, and then I was doing well, and then it sort of like that's it now. I'm coming down.
Did you feel like then, because that's a really good point, is that the minute you feel like you've identified yourself as having a quote unquote weakness, but not, in the army's view potentially. I mean, I say this, and I know if there's any backlash, that's fine, but it was always seen as that. I feel like if you're broken, you're broken, and if you're broken, it means you're not working, which means
The
you're
army
not
don't
part of
need
the
you.
comp. Yeah, the
No,
army,
no,
you actually,
you're not good
you're
to them, really.
yeah, you're like this real weird barrier. You're in the way, get out of the way. So.
I was on tour in Afghan, on the front line, on patrol in
Mm.
Afghan, and 6 months later, I was back in camp with someone telling me I wasn't good enough to be a sergeant in the British Army, in a report that was shoved under my door. Like that could have been
That's the
could have
end.
been another
That could be
statistic.
the end.
That could have been I could have been a statistic there with that. So I had to deal with that, and then go through the feelings of I'm better off if I'm not here. I'm probably better off if no one has to deal with me because of how I am. I'm not the Vicky that I once was, and it was my mum actually that noticed. My mum noticed first before anyone.
How many tours did you do in total?
Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, back to Iraq, and back to Afghan. So 6.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, do that many tours and come out unscathed it's got to be near on impossible. You've got to come out with at least something. Because I think you could be the strongest person in the world and still be affected by that many tours. That's a lot of things to see. That's a lot of different missions, kind of thing. And so to come out unscathed, I think that's near on impossible. So it's
I think that it was the tip of it was the tipping point was Afghan, the last one, because it was the closest I've come to actual bullets whizzing past my head and UGLs landing 15 meters away from me and hiding behind a Bergen thinking it was going to save me. No,
Do you feel like war became a reality at that point then?
it was like, yeah, that nothing can prepare you for that. I was prepared for all the casualties that you could throw at me. I was prepared for that because I was a medic and that was my job. But those near misses were just, no. That's
I feel like that would be, well, personally, that would be my thing because because at the end of the day, if you've been taught to do a job and in the military you do it, you drill it so much that you could do it when you sleep. You can do it when you've had like 2 minutes sleep, for 48 hours or something stupid, and you just do it. But when it's something that the army can't try to make that real, you can't try to do that within an exercise. I don't think so anyway. Do live firing packages, but no one's firing back at you. There's a couple of flashbangs that have gone off. Not the same if you've got something that's whizzing past your head that could quite literally take you out.
yeah. And you
Um,
hear it in the tree
yeah,
behind you, like
it's
cracking.
and yeah, the crackling, the noises that are passing by you, and then I think it's never going to leave you with so much damage because no one, I don't think anyone else in life gets that close to death ever, unless you're a racing driver or something, and you're just about to crash. That's the closest. If you're running into it, or you're trying to bound backwards with other troops with kit on you, and no one's ever going to let you
I
get
was
that
like,
close to
just
death
take over
ever.
me. I'm being a bit slow today. Go on, off you
Yeah,
go. I'll be
that's
there in a
it.
minute.
Yeah, do 3
Trying to run
bounds and I'll
fast,
catch up.
and you're going like slow mo. You think you're going hell, like for hell, but in the mud, you're sinking into the mud, trying to run. And that stay low, move fast. Have you ever tried to do that? That's not easy at all.
You don't get low enough.
No.
So you've managed to get to that point. Then you get medically discharged, right? And I first feeling, like, if you could just sum it up in one word, what was the first thing you'd come to your head? Like, you get that word to say you're getting medically discharged. What was your first thought?
Oh, it needed to happen. It was a relief. It was a relief. There's too many triggers around. I couldn't carry on. Actually, what I remember was the guy saying to me, Vicky, you have got post-traumatic stress disorder. And once the guy said that to me, I just broke down. I've been carrying it for so long, thinking it was me, to have someone tell me what was wrong with it was like, just thank you.
You finally got the answer you needed, really, didn't you, as well?
Needed it. I needed it to carry on.
Like, that's the thing with mental health in general, isn't it? Like, do you not see when when you've had mates and that have suffered, or just people in your family and that they tell you how you feel, and you're trying to, yeah, you probably got something X, Y, and Z, and then they go in and someone tells them like what diagnose them with, and then maybe it's that sense of relief that it isn't just it isn't just you, but it has become part of you due to, I don't know, X, Y, and Z, whatever has happened in your life. And now at least you can justify it a little bit. You can rationalize why you're feeling the way you're feeling. I think for you that must have been a massive relief, like knowing that you've got a way out, you've got a diagnosis, you can start the rebuild a little bit.
And it was because I was with a doctor that understood. I was lucky. I do feel very lucky that I went in and put my hands up and said, I don't think I'm suited for the army anymore. This is after 19 years. I was going into the doctor saying, I don't think I'm suited. I think I'm just going to get out.
Yeah.
And she was like, she was brilliant, absolutely fantastic to notice it and to say, look, I'm going to get you the correct diagnosis and everything, and we'll go through this down these channels, because I think there's a lot of guys out there that missed that opportunity, especially after Afghan. They felt the same as me. They were going through self-destruct mode the same as me, and they just thought, I can't do this anymore, I'm getting out. And they never got that help and support. I mean, I did get a little bit of CBT before I left, and I got the help, but I think there's a lot of guys out there that struggle just when a letter comes through the letterbox to open it, read it, deal with it, just put it in that drawer.
I think
It's
that's a good point.
PTSD isn't just about reacting to loud bangs. It's dealing with things, normal things in life that, I went to university. I could write essays. I couldn't even reply to a letter. I couldn't process information very well. I was struggling, and I had to do that at work, and I didn't realise that was part of me suffering.
I think that's that whole breaking the stigma around mental health. It's actually breaking the stigma around individual parts of mental health. For me, being at all that when I joined the military, PTSD was kind of coming into its early parts of people figuring out what that might look like. But it was known as loud bangs. Do
you have the nightmares? Do you have the? And it's like, well, I'm trying to explain the other things, and it was good to have someone to understand that it wasn't just about that side of things. It was affecting my everyday life of how I functioned.
So now, so you left in what year?
So I left in September 2019, but I've been off work for a year before.
So say
I got that date to leave.
So since then till now, what has life looked like? Because you left, and then where did you go after that point?
So this is my part of my story that brings me here to the village. So I left. I was in Colchester. I was living out in a house in Colchester with one of the girls I worked with at the time. I met my partner Sarah while I was still there, and she lived down the road here in Kent. And I used to travel down to Kent back and forwards, and then when I got out, it was, well, we'll go and live with Sarah and her mum and her dad and a dog. And I've got a dog because I got Dexter, my dog, when I was at my worst, when I couldn't get out of bed, to help me with life, basically to function again. My mum said to this day, it's the best thing I ever did was get that dog. And he's the reason I'm here today. And so so we moved in, and it was just a bit like hectic, like living in a room with my dog's like a horse. He's huge.
Yeah,
like Dexter. He's a
like
big
a
old
blonde
unit.
horse.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, look, wow.
Oh, he's huge. But and then it was a bit cramped and a bit like, oh, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to being like in the family setting either. I'm used to being on my own in the family of the army, but doing my own thing. It wasn't. Oh, it was just.
So that is hard. It is hard. When I moved back, being as all that, I wasn't suffering with any PTSD or anything, and so I can see how that's going to then make it harder. But I remember moving home, and I moved in with my mum for like a short period, and I thought, this is bollocks. I was like, I've just lived on my own, cooked on my own, did whatever I needed to do, and was good at it. And then all of a sudden now, I was like, nah, I can't cope with this. This is weird. And I remember I really did struggle for a long time, and it must have been hard for you because you've now sort of joined in with someone else's family group. Albeit that you'd obviously probably met them well before this, but when you then live with someone, we all know that changes the ballgame. Whether it be your partner or family, it's hard. And having your PTSD being probably quite well in a bad place, I'm guessing still. What did you do? So once you then got yourself home, you're with Sarah. What happened then? Like, what happened with your mental health? What did you do about it?
To be fair, Sarah's mum was brilliant. I mean, I can't, I give her credit for helping me through that time of my life. She was such a great support to me at that point, and we were going through other things as well with Sarah at the time, and we both had our own individual issues going on,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how we got through it all really together, and mum, my family, that massive support. I can't fault it, but there was obviously that I need somewhere. I need my safe place.
Mhm.
I need that feeling of feeling secure, because the army give me all that throughout. Well, not just my 19 years,
Yeah,
my whole childhood.
yeah.
So I've moved around every 3 years of my entire life,
Mhm.
pretty much until that point. And I was like, what do I do now then?
Yeah.
And then I I applied to the Medway Council, I think it was.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting if they'd like to call me back.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for a call
That's it.
back.
You're on the list.
Yeah, I'm on the list.
Whereabouts? About
Because
fifth?
it's
Yeah.
they say when you leave, they say, oh, you go to the top, and I'm thinking, I haven't actually got. I'm not from anywhere.
Yeah.
I've moved around my whole life. People ask me that, where you're from, and I look at them and hold on a minute, let me think. Where am I from? It's a difficult question to ask me, really, as I'm on the spot. It's just a simple question like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I drove past here, the village. It brings me to the RBLI village. I drove in past one day. I was like, "What's that poppy all about then?" And I drove in and went to the factory and went, literally, "Can you help me?" And you're in the factory. All right, where do I go then? You know that my button up there, and I was like, all right. So I came in here.
Yeah.
I saw Maria and Maria and Malcolm at the time, and I filled out my application form. I come in and they said they could help me, and I was just again like that moment of being told I got PTSD. I just broke down. I was like, there's help here. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe that they were gonna give me what I needed and what I wanted, which was because I never, my own fault, coming back from all those tours. I just spent my money on most of my money's in Colchester High Street and all the pubs up there.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
just lived life to the max. Oh, you don't know when your last day's going to be. Let's go out. So I didn't prepare myself for getting out while I was, and then I didn't know that I was going to get ill and not finish my 22 years career. So it got cut short a bit.
It's kind of not your fault and is your fault all at once.
Yeah.
It's kind of like someone handing you like £1 million and then saying, "Oh, be like, do well with that. Make sure you do the right thing." Well, you don't know what the right thing is when you're like 25, 26, or 20s, and you think, "Oh, the right thing to do would be invest in a great pub." And when I mean invest in it, I mean make sure that I drink as fucking much as possible and get shit faced. Yeah. Um, so you end up on the village then, and since you've been here, then what is it that you do to better your mental health then? Like, because you've been here, you still struggle, day to day. I know you have your triggers. I know there's things that you still struggle with. So what is it that you are doing? Are you medicated? Do you see therapists?
Yeah,
Or
so I've been through therapy here,
yeah,
and I know where it is if I need it, if I get really bad. So that's a real comfort,
yeah,
really, knowing where it is and it's there if I need it. And I'm medicated, yeah. Every day I take my tablets and that, and I just, that's part of me now, isn't it? It's just that I have to, yeah, I feel comfortable taking it because I know that I'm not going to be up and down all the time or worrying about if I'm going to be okay. It sort of levels me into that, it levels me out. It helps. It does help. I mean, I had to go through the therapy, the medication, everything to get in a better place.
Yeah.
It had to be all together. It couldn't have been just one or the other. Had to be a mixture of a bit of everything.
Right.
But what I do is because I've lived so long trying to struggle through, I found ways of myself for dealing with it myself. And what I found here in the village is that you get better around other veterans because you've got similarity. You've all served. That's one thing you've all done together. You've all served. So it's nice to have that feeling of safety and security here. And it helps. It's helped with my recovery massively, knowing that I'm in this safe environment. And I like to help people. I like to my dog Dexter helped me,
Mm.
and I like him helping others. So I take him to the Appleton Lodge and Bradbury House every couple of weeks. He goes around there and eats all their biscuits and makes their day. And I think, well, if he can give a bit back, if we can do it together, and it really helps me too.
I think it's one of the biggest therapies is helping others. And having an animal, and I just yeah, I mean, I've got the most pathetic looking dog. I will bring Rocky on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rocky has to come on.
Yes,
I don't think we'll get your dog in a room, though. I think this is not as
Yeah, we
big
won't
as
fit
it
in
looks.
here.
I mean, Rocky's like he could fit in Dior handbag. He's ridiculous, and he just makes me feel massive. It's all about making me look huge. But yeah,
It's been great having you on. It really has. And I normally say to every guest we have on about your final thoughts. But if there's anybody in the army right now who could be listening to this, and they might be the same situation you was in, but still in, what would you say to them?
Go and get some help, and if they're not listening, keep going. Just keep going back to go someone different. Go, just keep at it, and just if you know that you're struggling, it's better to get that help sooner rather than leaving it for so long, for such a long time. And I think noticing it in others as well. I think that's a big thing,
that's important.
If you do notice it in others, just maybe just try and help. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Vicky.
Thanks, Sam.
Our very own Wonder Woman. And
Yeah.
it's been great having you on. But yeah, that's all we've got time for today, guys. It's been great. Been a great podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let us know what you think about it. And
Nice one. Yeah, cheers. Leave comments below. Yeah, thanks, Vicky.
Good
Cheers.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah, good comments. Cheers.